Look, a lot of times we think we deal with our own baggage, but we don't. We kind of look at it and go, "Oh shit, let's put that away." We don't want to discuss that, or we don't want to address that issue. And quite often it takes a lot of courage to actually look at yourself and go, "I'm actually part cause, or a lot of the cause of the reasons why I get what I get."
Welcome to the Get Invested podcast, where we share great conversations with experts from all walks of life to uncover their secret know-how on where they invest their time, their skills and their money, and the benefits that this has created. You see, the truth is that everyone invests. Every minute of every day, we're investing our time, our skills, our energy and our money in something. Some of us are investing consciously, some unconsciously, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad, and sometimes for no impact. Get Invested will help you to start living by design, not by default. I'm going to help you to make it happen, not let it happen. You will hear the top tips on how you can live with conscious intent so that you can live more, work less, and leave a living legacy by investing now. Listen to the show to discover the top tips on how to get started, make the most of your investment journey, and ultimately to be living your dream, not someone else's. More episodes can be found on iTunes or at bushymartin.com.au/get invested. Thanks for listening, and now let's get invested. Hi, Freedom Fighters. Now, we all want success in our relationship and our career, right? We see dynamic duos like Barack and Michelle Obama, Melinda and Bill Gates, and in our mind's eye we go, that's going to be us. You know, to enjoy a loving, intimate, growing, fun-filled relationship with your partner and to make a difference in the world with your work, your career or your business. Now, this is our dream, but what's the reality? How do we achieve it in one, yet alone both of these key areas of our lives when we're constantly under time, money and just the general pressure of everyday life, running exhausted from one demand to the next in the never-ending rat race cycle that's our lives? Most of us share this dream of relationship bliss coupled with career success, but how many of you are really living it? For many, the reality is very different. Do you find yourself arguing with your spouse over work, business or money pressures? Or do you sweep it under the carpet and hope that it'll all just sort itself out? Or maybe the constant, relentless and forensic work pressure has dulled the spark and worn away the intimacy in your relationship and you're left just going through the motions. Have you mentally quit but physically stayed? Is your work, career or business demands bulldozing its way through every facet of your life? Now, these are the telltale signs that your work life is significantly impacting on your relationship. And I know this because I've been there. I lost my first marriage because I was selfishly and obsessively work and business focused. And I just expected that my relationship would survive my long-term neglect. The lyrics to one of my favourite Eagles songs, Waiting in the Winds, captured it perfectly. I don't know when I realised the dream was over. Well, there was no particular hour, no given day. You know, it didn't go down in flames. There was no final scene, no frozen frame. I just watched it slowly fade away. And I've got no one to blame but myself. And my marriage to my awesome wife Sonia is a partnership in life and business. We're pretty much joined at the hip 24/7. And while we share an awesome life and a great business, it's not easy and it takes us both continuous work. The power of two, where the synergy of 1 + 1 = 3, where the whole is much greater than the sum of the parts, definitely rings true. But it could easily slip back to 1 - 1 equaling not just 0 but negative if we weren't jointly committed to making it work and doing the work. As I quote in my book, The Freedom Formula, when I becomes we, illness becomes wellness. And you've probably all heard that saying that behind every great man, well, I prefer to say that beside every great person is an even greater partner. So, how can you turn things around before it's too late and go from just surviving to thriving? How do you shift from the risk of becoming a statistic to revelling in success? How do you create an environment with your partner where love, life and business success can grow and flourish long term without becoming faded, jaded or worse? Well, this is where today's guest, Julie Richman, comes in. She's the author of Dynamic Duos, the essential guide for couples who live and work together, and Julie has seen it all firsthand from all angles. Her first marriage and business failure almost killed her. She was left emotionally exhausted, mentally burnt out, and financially destitute. However, the second time round, she was much wiser on how to combine her marriage with her business. She knew from bitter experience the many pitfalls that occur in relationships and has developed some awesome strategies that make things work a lot smoother. So if you want to take and improve your life and business partnerships and enjoy life together as a dynamic duo, then you're going to love this conversation. In our very wide-ranging discussion, you'll learn what are your 5 core foundations to living, why do you have a box of springs, and how does this impact on your life? What are the 5 C's that need to be understood and put into play when building successful relationships with your partner, while at the same time growing a successful business life? Julie's got an infectious love of life built around warmth, empathy and self-awareness. And she really gets you to think deep and hard about yourself while having a really good laugh. So enjoy this engaging conversation with Julie Richman. Hi, Freedom Fighters. Today I'm humbled to have an opportunity to talk with Julie Richman. And Julie's someone that I had the pleasure of talking with in quite some depth over a year ago now when she was preparing a research for her very good book, Dynamic Duos. And what really struck me at the time was that we both shared very similar parallel paths. And I really thought that it's going to be of interest to get invested listeners. So welcome aboard, Julie Richman.
Thank you so much for having me, Bushy. Lovely to be here.
Absolutely. No, really looking forward to a deep dive chat today, Julie. And to kick things off, for those who aren't aware of who you are and what you do, can you give us a bit of a rundown?
Well, I'm an entrepreneur, businesswoman at heart. Perfectionist, I suppose you could say. I'm a mother of 2 beautiful daughters. One is a pilot in the Air Force and the other one is studying criminology. Very, very just happy, ordinary person, just bombing along doing my thing.
Well,
I currently run 5 companies, so I keep myself a little bit of a busy beaver.
Only 5. Good grief.
Only 5. I'm trying to amalgamate that into 3 just to make it a little bit easier on me. We'll
I
get
don't
there.
know how you fit. In doing the research on you, I was like, my goodness, how do you fit this in? You mustn't sleep. But Julie,
Yeah.
I'm really keen for you to share with us why you do what you do. So give us a bit of a rundown on what those business interests are and with an emphasis on the why.
Sure. I mean, if you want to understand who I am and where I've come from, you really have to go back to obviously the things that I experienced as a child. And I grew up. I went to 9 different schools, and fitting in was very difficult. So one of my key passions, right from when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, was that people would just accept others for who they are. And that's kind of driven me a lot to see the world in a different way and try and find the best way to become or to make that happen or to affect that in other people's lives. So you find when I'm talking with people or sharing with people, I'm very accepting of who they are. And so I found that really supported the process of helping people in business as a consultant, as a supporter, mentor, coach, whatever you want to call them. There's a lot of terminologies these days. But what I focused on mainly was the families, the couples in business together, which is why I wrote the book Dynamic Duos, but being able to support them through on a personal level as well as a business level, because I feel that the two are very, very closely intertwined. So I guess that's why I do what I do, because I have a passion to see these people succeed, and that comes through from what I had to go through. You know, it's not an easy path sometimes, you know, when you're growing up, and if you have a little bit of insight, it's great to share that.
Absolutely. Well, let's go on that journey if we can then, Julie, and sort of take us through your life journey so far, focusing on what you did, when, and why again, and what did that lead you to, what were the benefits and otherwise to take you through to where you are now?
Well, funnily enough, I always thought that the instability of my childhood was a problem, but a lovely lady pointed out to me, well, it's actually a benefit, because I'm able to go into any business and be very adaptable and flexible to be able to pick up on things that are going on, and then apply the skills and knowledge of my business experience. So I guess it's made me adaptable. It's made me able to wing it through a lot of things and fly through using the skills that I've got. You know, street smarts, I suppose you could call them. So when I finished high school, you know, I wanted to get my university entrance, which my mother, you know, encouraged me to do. So I'm glad I did that at the time, but I didn't pursue university. I was more in the school of hard knocks. So I just went in boots and all and jumped into life and, you know, swam my little heart out and, you know, often going round and round in circles. But I think it was more because I wanted to experience things. You know, I was more of a doer rather than sitting and listening or taking a back seat. So I jumped in, started my first business when I was 24. My youngest daughter was only 8 weeks old when I went into business. Yeah. And it was at that point when I realised that, hey, I'm a businesswoman at heart. Business was in my blood, so I kind of understood it on a deeper level.
Yeah, okay. Tell me, yes, and you so say, let's dig into the instability as you call it. What does that mean? I'm sort of want to explore what you feel instability means to you.
Well, I have a vivid memory of being 2 years old and standing in the lounge room of the house that we lived in at the time, and just having this overwhelming feeling that everything was turned upside down and different. And that was when my father left the family, and then, as I said, we had instability with my sister moving out of home when she was 11, and going to a foster home. There was just me and my brother. By the time I was 9, my mother and then stepfather picked me up from New Zealand and brought me to Australia and left my brother and sister behind. So from the age of 9, I was kind of an only child. And just when I was settling in Sydney, I had, 3 or 4 different schools. And even on my first day at school, I remember going to Chatswood Primary School, and I was in grade 4, and they put this maths test in front of me, and I looked at it and I just cried because there was not one question on this maths test that I could answer, not one, and that was very disheartening for me. So I guess I went home, and luckily my stepfather's mother was there, so she was a surrogate teacher, and she taught me everything she knew about maths, and I went through the entire textbook in a matter of 8 weeks, and from then on I never had a problem with maths. I could sit on the couch and watch television and do trigonometry and still get 98%. So it's funny how things happen, and then the turning point in your life and other things sort of come along the way. Would I change it? No, I wouldn't. But I know when I was 15, of course, I just settled down, and that's when you start making friends for life, my parents took me to Tasmania, and of course I lost all my friends network there.
Of course.
So that's what I mean by instability. Every time I thought I was settling down into something, the rug would be ripped out from under me, and I'd have to pick myself up and dust myself off and start again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, thanks for sharing that, because that really puts some colour around it. And I just want to go back to one comment you made there, Julie. At 2 years old, feeling overwhelmed when Dad left. You can remember back that far? Is it?
I can. Yep, I can see it very vividly in my mind. That's how different it was. It was just, I just knew something was different, and that's when he left the house.
How did that make you feel? Because I know a lot of kids who go
devastated.
Yeah.
Absolutely devastated. I was only 2, so you don't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
But at the time, my mother was in the process of having a nervous breakdown.
Wow.
So as a 2-year-old, my brother and sister were older than me, so they were 8 and 9 years older than me. Yeah. And so they were always off with their friends running down the road, whatever. And so I was the one who actually crawled up onto the bed next to my mother, who's bawling her eyes out, and I'd lie next to her and I'd be her emotional support at the age of 2, so supposed to be the other way around.
Wow.
But I sort of felt like, I was there to prop her up emotionally through a lot of her life. And by the time I was 15, and we'd moved from Sydney to Tasmania, and I was really struggling at that point in time because most of my childhood had disappeared. Yeah. But that's when my mother had another nervous breakdown, and then she lent on me, and then of course I collapsed. So I had my first complete nervous breakdown at the age of 15, my second one at the age of 27.
Wow. Great.
So yeah, go well, really.
Got things out of the way early.
Yeah, I figured it's only every way is up now.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's and I can see why you're now feeling, and someone said to you that instability has probably set your course, because you're so used to being thrown into foreign and confronting and emotionally challenging situations to swim your way through that. It takes a lot of resilience, I would imagine, Julie.
Oh, absolutely. And I suppose that's why I consider myself, what they call a survivor, or, people who have to become emotionally strong, because there is no other way. If you didn't, you'd just jump off the cliff and never live to see another day. But that doesn't produce anything for me. It doesn't. I just look at that and I go, well, all that means is for me, I've just got to come back and do it all again.
Yeah.
It's like, how about we make things a little bit easier and just do it the first time properly,
Yeah, that's contributed to the perfectionism, do you think? It's like, righto, I'm going to get this right or not? No?
No, that's just that's the perfectionism side of it is just my analytical nature. It's just the anal retentive part of me that has a conniption if somebody doesn't follow the systems in the business, and I'm like,
Yeah, okay. Well, let's jump back to you started the first business at 24, and talk us through that to what then led to your 99th nervous breakdown at 27.
Well, actually, it was quite funny because and some of the investors, some of the people listening to this podcast, or people who are wanting to get invested, may relate to this in a little bit, and it kind of really ties back into the book Dynamic Duos, the essential guide for couples in business together, because obviously I'm on my second marriage. My first marriage and business nearly killed me,
Yeah.
I was left emotionally burnt out, mentally, and financially destitute, and just absolutely exhausted beyond all shadow of a doubt. But I suppose what happened was started around that first business sort of side of things. So, I was 24 years old. Before I fell pregnant with my first daughter, I was actually working at the zinc refinery in Tasmania as a mechanical engineer.
Yep.
So we were doing, I was doing preventative maintenance on all the big machinery there and stuff like that. And, of course, you have to have lead tests regularly.
Yep.
And then when you fall pregnant, it's like, you can't get lead through to the baby. So anyway, so I finished up with them. And then I had Shannon, who's my first daughter, and then 6 months later, it's like, again, how did that happen? So then my second daughter came along, and then after she was 8 weeks old, I'm going, well, I can't really go back into engineering and back into that environment. So that's when I looked around for something else, and another lady was doing a small business, which I thought was great, and I kind of took over because she was sort of letting it go. And so I started a direct selling business, homewares, with some quality Australian brands and international brands of linen and homewares and, cookware and stuff like that. And so I actually built that up to have 3 or 4 consultants, and coordinated the first ever home shopping expo out of that, and we raised about $2,500 for Camp Quality at the time. And that was in Tasmania, so that was really good. I was quite proud of that event. I exchanged the trading rights of that for I did a deal with the Chamber of Commerce and Industry down there for a job for 12 months. And from there I did a diploma in entrepreneurial management, which was really great. It's harder to spell than it is to do. But it was really good. And at the end of that time, I mean, I'd sort of put my home shopping business off to the side. And it was sort of around that time I was sort of falling into a hole, because my parents decided that after they brought me to Tasmania, they decided they'd leave me in Tasmania and go back to Sydney. And I kind of looked around and thought, I don't actually have any family left down here now. So I thought, do I really want to live there? And the answer was no. So I decided that I would move to Brisbane. And I said to my husband, by the way, I'm doing this diploma, and this is in the January. I said to him, I'm leaving at the end of the year, so you can either come if you want or you can stay, whatever. I kind of didn't really want to be responsible for the, 5 years later, you made me move to Brisbane. I was like, no, I'm good with that, thanks. So this is my decision, because I have to look after myself first. I knew I was falling in a hole.
Right.
And I knew that was a very dangerous place for me to go, and I had to start looking after myself. So I guess I probably, invested a lot in my own happiness to try and find out where that is and what that means, and how do you build that? How do you create that? So
let's dig in right there, because that's investing in your own happiness. What conclusions did you come to in relation to what was important for your happiness that then set the course?
Well, I had to look around, and this is what I put in the book. My book, The Dynamic Duos, is I had to look around at who I was, who my partner was, and what sort of commitment levels we really had, and why were we married in the first place. And I kind of felt, I suppose, we were married, we got engaged when I was 17, so we were quite young, and got married 4 years later. There was something obviously really good there to start with, because otherwise, you don't stay with someone and have kids and get married. But I kind of looked at it and thought, maybe I'm more grateful to be married to him at a time when I felt that I was very unlovable. So I felt somebody loved me when I wasn't that lovable to myself. And I think that's where a lot of people sort of fall, is that they look outside themselves for happiness. If I love you, then you'll love me back. And when it doesn't come back, they get very disheartened, and it kind of tends to mess with their heads a little bit. So I had to really go and say, well, who's responsible for my happiness? It's me. So am I happy is the first question. Probably not. So if I'm honest with myself with the answer, and the answer comes back as no, then I've really got to do something about that, can't blame anybody else for me not being happy. So, and that was the decision to move to Brisbane, and I knew that the answers that I was looking for was in Brisbane, so I came up here. My husband at the time decided he would follow, so that was a pleasant surprise. You know, he sold up the house and packed up the house and packed up 2 kids and 2 dogs and and drove all the way from Tasmania to Brisbane.
So you and that surprised you? You didn't think he would follow? Is that
I kind of thought that he probably would, but I had to be prepared in myself that he might not. So I had to be strong enough to realise that. And Bushy, I mean, if you're talking opening up really to the guts of it, I was at a point in time where I was so depressed and so sad that I actually had visions, and this is weird. I had visions of how do I draw blood and spray it around the bush and then disappear.
Yeah. No.
That's how much I wanted to get out.
Wow.
And I didn't know how to get out, so I just had to take one step at a time. I'm talking about going through depression medication for 18 months and, going and seeing a counsellor and psychologist for, a couple of years and trying to recover. And a lot of it was a lot of trauma from my childhood as well.
Yeah.
That has sort of been dragged up.
Yeah.
We've got an extremely dysfunctional family, so it's kind of the way it goes. But anyway, getting back onto the point to it, we actually, I came to Brisbane to look for that happiness, and my ex-husband followed and brought the family up and all that sort of stuff. And we went into a business. We went into a franchise business as a franchisee, and unfortunately, we picked one that was supposedly one of the best at the time. Won all these awards and things like that, and it ended up being the most difficult to run. So at the end of the day, we were working 50, 60, 70 hours a week and maybe getting 50 cents an hour.
Good grief.
Yeah, so the net profit out of that before you paid any loans back on the business was 3%. And that's a well-known franchise that only now, probably, what are we talking? We're talking probably 18 years later, is now finally coming out that, hey, this isn't a good business model. It doesn't actually work, and all of the franchisees are going under. So that's a little bit of a difficulty. For the sake of professionalism, we'll just name it as in franchise X.
Gotcha. Yeah, gotcha. So I'm second guessing here, but that financial stress and the time stress on top of everything else that was going on, I can imagine that would have put the oxy torch on the relationship too.
Oh yeah, it was going down. I think the worst part was when the franchisor spread rumours to my ex-husband behind my back, and that kind of made it difficult. And the relationship failed, but I was still in the business, working the business. But there wasn't enough money to support me. And what happened was when I wanted to leave the marriage, and the business didn't have enough money, so I had to live on Centrelink while I'm running a business because there wasn't enough to even feed me. Wow. And a friend of mine, and I wanted to get out of the relationship. There was nowhere I could go because I didn't have my own financial self-sufficiency in the business,
Yeah.
My ex-husband, I'd sort of said, within the first year, we need you to go and earn money outside. So he was on a brilliant income, which, was fine. But because I was running the business and there was nothing in there,
of course,
that made it difficult for me. Now, a friend of mine, she was very, very gracious. She let me stay in her place, her unit for 6 months, basically living rent-free, which I was so appreciative because I would have nowhere to go otherwise. Wow. I had a little $500 bommy car that I used to drive around in, and my kids used to come down, and I had no furniture. So this is a turning point. I was 30, by the way.
Right.
31 years of age. So I'd done the white picket fence and the house and the dog and the kids and the cat and the fish and, you know, all that fairy tale stuff that we tell our kids, you know, and they lived happily ever after, you know. And I looked around at 31, I go, that's a load of crap. What the hell's that all about?
Good grief.
Anyway, so I'd had the white picket fence. That didn't work. So here I was on my own. I had no furniture. I didn't have a couch or a dining table or a television or anything. I walked out of the marriage with a futon bed, which was lumpy as hell, and the clothes on my back, and that was it. And when my kids would come and stay, I used to put some little strips of the really thin carpet together, and they'd bring their sleeping bag and a pillow, so they'd sleep on the concrete floor with some strips of carpet, and they were so excited just to be near mummy at that stage, you know, which was really great, and they were very patient with me as I clawed my way back up to some sort of semblance of being able to sustain myself in a place by myself that I could have the kids, you know, so a townhouse or a unit or something. So
how did you do that?
Yeah.
What was how did you work? What did you invest your time, energy and money in from that point that started you moving in a different direction?
Sure. Look, as I said to you before, Bushy, the main thing was that I wasn't happy. And if I wasn't happy, then that was going to have an impact on everything, you know. One of the things that I really wanted when I had my kids was like a legacy that I wanted to leave. I thought the greatest legacy that I can leave my kids is their education. And so, of course, when the relationship was good and we had plenty of money, and, you know, I'd put them through private school, you know. And I was so amazed because it was cheaper than, obviously, kindergarten at that time. I could put them into private school kindy. And Shannon came back at the age of 4 and she said to me one day, she said, Mummy, I learnt 4 words today. She goes, as in bird, as in work, as in her, as in nurse. And I went, gee, that's really well worth the investment, isn't it? This is a 4-year-old.
Oh my God.
You know, we're going on the right direction. And then of course we moved to Brisbane, and you know, with all the troubles and the difficulties and the struggles, and my ex said to me, well, I went to public school and I turned out okay. And I was like, okay. So they went to public school, and of course the level of academic dropped. Oh. But as the relationship was sort of coming apart and things, I looked at it and I thought, okay, what type of education is the legacy I'm going to leave my kids? So then I thought, maybe it's the education about life is more important than the education in the school. So what I've done from that moment on is I stepped out of the relationship and I went and worked on myself, you know, disarming all my triggers, let my hand off the box, you know, and this is all explained in my book, The Dynamic Duos book, is that, you know, everyone has a box of springs. We kind of call it baggage, but anyway, there's springs in there, so you've got to actually let your hand off the box. And of course all the springs go pa-choong, you know. Exactly. And people go, oh my God, I've just lost control of everything. But essentially what you've got is an empty box. So then you can go back and you can put only the springs in the box that you want. Do I want my kids with me? I'm not sure just yet. I'm just going to put that to one side. Do I want my ex-husband? No, that's gone. Okay, do I want this? Do I want that? Okay, do I want the shop? Not really, but I kind of have to be there for a moment. Okay, well, we'll just put that to one side. Do you know what I mean? So you only put back the springs in your box that you actually really want. And anyway, obviously my kids did come back into the box. They're my little springs in my box. And what I started to realise is that the education that I was teaching them was more about life skills. So when I analysed, the relationship that I had, I thought I could stay with my ex-husband but be unhappy, or I can leave and be independent and be happy. But that's going to obviously mean that the family's broken apart. So what do I teach my girls if I stay in the relationship? Yeah. Am I teaching them to stay with their husband no matter whether they're happy or not? Or if I move, what am I teaching my girls? So, of course, the decision that I made have now raised 2 very strong, independent young girls. Awesome. You know, so that's kind of like okay, the next part was, how do I disarm my triggers? What's the point to life? How do I make myself happy? How do I help other people but make sure that I'm not left on my own, all those sorts of things. So it's quite a journey, and I think by seeing the world a different way, it does help you to not then dump your baggage onto your kids. So I've tried not to do that, because I've tried to, disarm a lot of my own triggers, and therefore I don't have that effect as much on them as I would do if I hadn't. If that makes sense.
No, that absolutely makes sense. And a lot of people wouldn't be able to step outside themselves enough to see that, though, Julie. A lot of people who end up in that position, and you and I have said previously, I was in exactly the same place from the other side. And what is it, do you think, that gave you that resilience and the ability to work through that rather than drown in it, which would be very easy to do?
Look, a lot of times we think we deal with our own baggage, but we don't. We kind of look at it and go, "Oh shit, let's put that away." We don't want to discuss that, or we don't want to address that issue. And quite often it takes a lot of courage to actually look at yourself and go, "I'm actually part cause, or a lot of the cause of the reasons why I get what I get." Now, it's okay. Here's an example based on the family, is that as the girls got older, they'd say to me, "Can I do this? Can I do that?" And it was easier for me just to say no, no, no. Anyway, one day Shannon turns around to me and she goes, "How come?"
Yeah.
And I went, that's an interesting question, Shannon. I don't have an answer for that one. So I had to reevaluate what my rules were in the house, because I kept forgetting whether I said yes last time or no last time. It should be yes or no. Anyway, so I threw out every single rule in my house, and I went, okay, I've got to have just 2 rules, because that's all I can remember right now. Always tell me the truth and always respect me. So those are my non-negotiables. So as long as they tell me the truth, they can really pretty much do what they want, obviously, except, it's not recommended for them to go down the valley in the middle of the night and miniskirt and not expect to be, mugged or something, but don't put themselves in mortal danger. But apart from that, just tell me the truth.
Yeah.
So I made an environment where my children could come home and they could tell me anything and I wouldn't flinch. Yeah. Not flinch a skerrick, "Oh, Mum, I'm pregnant," or "I've done drugs," or whatever, and "I've done this and I've done that." And I wouldn't flinch. I'd just go, "Oh, that's very interesting. How did you enjoy that experience, dear?" And they'd be like, "Oh, okay, I could tell Mum anything."
Yeah.
They'd go to their father's place and they would say something, even, "Oh, I didn't do my homework," and he'd fly off the handle. "What?" And so, of course, they became scared to tell him anything.
Of course.
So what they would then do, he's actually created an environment where they would lie to him.
Yep. Yeah, well, it's a normal thing, isn't it?
They don't feel
safe.
Don't feel comfortable saying anything.
Yeah.
So they'll tell him what he wants to hear, and then they'll be happy, and he'll be happy, and then off they go,
Yeah.
So they'd tell him, "Oh, we're going ice skating tonight, Dad," and then they'd drive down to my place, which is only 5 minutes around the corner, and they'd come and lie on the couch and watch movies.
Yeah.
And then they'd go home at midnight. "Oh yeah, ice skating was fun, thanks, Dad." It's like you've created a situation by not allowing or not requiring them to tell you the truth. So people wonder why do people lie to us? Because we've actually created that situation. So it takes a lot of courage and strength to actually look at ourselves and go, "I'm causing this.
Yeah,
I'm causing this. I need to stop. I need to do things differently."
That's a revelation that very few people actually get to, and I guess it ties in beautifully with what you started by saying, that acceptance without judgment is really a foundational approach for you.
Absolutely, it has to be the core of who you are. It's your integrity. It's how you approach the world. I don't want to see. When I say I can't, I have this thing, one of my famous sayings about things is there's no such word as can't. It's either don't know how or you don't want to.
Yeah.
If you don't know how, we'll teach you. And if you still don't do it, then it's because you don't want to. So just admit it, you just don't want to do it. Right. And you know, when you cut to the chase like that with people, quite often they look at you and they go, well, you know, that's true. I don't want to. So the main thing is we have to stop lying to ourselves first.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, once we stop lying to ourselves, then it helps us to stop lying to other people, you know.
Yeah. Yes.
Because we're honest with ourselves. We just go, this is who I am, you know, I don't want to go, you know. And that's those things about when you want to be happy. If I don't want to go and do something, I'll go, no, I don't want to do it. And shouldn't feel guilty about not wanting to do it. Do you want to go to the family Christmas party? No. Yep. Okay, don't go. I'll go. You stay here.
And that's okay. Exactly.
That's okay. That should be okay.
Yeah.
It's your family, not my family. I don't want to go. That's it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. That's that inner strength to, one, recognise that and then be comfortable to put that out there. And very few people have that courage in
we do things out of obligation.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we wonder why we're unhappy at the end of the day.
Yeah, because we're satisfying everyone else but ourselves.
Exactly. Exactly. You're doing things that you don't really want to do. And you know what the funny thing was, Bushy? My mother always said to me growing up, she said, dear, life wasn't meant to be easy. So I get to 35 and I'm struggling my ass off and I'm going, apparently I'm on the right track because life wasn't meant to be easy. So this is what it's meant to be like.
It's okay. Yes, she was right.
Then this coconut fell from the tree and knocked me on the head and went, hey, life is meant to be easy. We just complicate it for ourselves by doing all the things that we feel we should obligatedly do, but we don't really want to, or, you know, we've been taught to do this and it doesn't work, but we keep doing it and we're banging our head against a brick wall thinking if we do the same thing it's going to make a difference, but it doesn't. And, you know, I don't get that. It doesn't make logical sense to me. I'm not a smart woman. I'm not a super intelligent woman. I'm not dumb either. But if it doesn't make logical sense, I go, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
Tell me why you did that again. I don't understand it.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, so, and that's a really important recognition to come to grips with. And if you got there at 35, then I reckon you're doing damn well because most people never get there. Where did that lead you to then? Because that is a fundamental change in your whole outlook on the world, really. And it's obviously didn't happen overnight. There's a growing thing that's happened through the evolution of the journey you went through. What happened then? What happened next? Well,
I mean, as I said, we're in the franchise for a bit, and then it was made clear to me that the franchisor was not going to let me out very easily, and then it became a choice whether I wanted the freedom or to retain the money, and I thought, no, I want my freedom more. So I was, thank you, okay, that was a lovely experience, good, bad, and indifferent. To say thank you very much. I appreciate the lesson that you've given me. I will try not to ever do this again. And and you walk away, you know. From that, obviously, I hit rock bottom financially because I just gone, you know what, I don't need this hassle. And then slowly picked myself up again. And, you know, the funny thing was I had a discussion with William, my current husband, my beautiful man. He's just the most amazing pineapple I've ever come across.
Love it. Awesome.
And, you know, and we were having a discussion at the time when the economy in Europe was going really down and, you know, major breaking news. Oh, Greece's gone bankrupt. You know, Greece has gone bankrupt. You know, and he's like, oh, that's a shock. And I'm kind of giggling in the background, going, okay, so what happens the next day?
Yeah,
they just get up and they go to work.
They do.
Sure,
life goes on.
You know, like life goes on. You know,
Yeah.
anyway, and you have to see beyond the fear, I guess, of what that represents. It's the symbolism of what things represent rather than what it actually is. You know, a lot of people have this symbolism about what family's supposed to represent, and really it's nothing like that. And that's when they get disappointed. I suppose you can say it with customer service. You know, their expectation is higher than what they actually got, and they're not happy with it, you know.
Yeah.
So it's about understanding and taking the fantasy out of things rather than actually seeing what it is for the reality. Another thing, I was having a discussion with one of the ladies the other day, and I said, everything you have in life is like an experience, right? So you've got a beginning, a middle bit, and an end bit, right? The beginning bit's the honeymoon, and the middle bit's the reality, and then the end bit's the bad stuff like the divorce and shit, you know, and that's when everybody ends up in tears. I said, but an experience can be anything. It could be reading a book or watching a movie or going into a new job or having a new relationship or going into a business or whatever. Anything you do in life is an experience, right? Now, that experience can last a minute, an hour, a day, a week, a month, 10 years, 100 years, whatever. It's the length of the experience is irrelevant, but it'll always have the same three components: the honeymoon, the reality, and the divorce, right? Yeah. Now, if any experience you go into, they will never show you the divorce bit, because you look at it and go, get stuffed, I'm not going into that. Right? They won't even show you the reality, you know, the late nights of working in the business and the hard slog and the arguments and the ups and downs and the tired, and, you know, like no one tells you about the sleepless nights you have when you have a baby for the first time. You know?
Exactly.
And if you looked at that and you were actually in the middle of the reality, you'd sort of go, ooh, thanks, but no thanks, you know. You only ever see the honeymoon.
Yeah.
For any experience you're going into, you only ever see the honeymoon part, right? Mm. So your fantasy is about, oh, this is going to be a great business, it's going to be successful, it's going to be a brilliant investment, this new rental property we've got is going to be the bee's knees, it's going to make us $1 squillion, you know, like whatever. It's only ever the honeymoon that you see, right? Mm. Now, what I've experienced is the higher the level of fantasy of the honeymoon, the bigger the crash at the other end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The more you go in with this pie in the sky dream about how something's going to work, the bigger the disappointment at the other end. So you have to go into everything knowing the reality. If you can see the reality and go, yep, I still want to take on this experience, that's better. That's a much more realistic approach to things, you know? Mm. And so I'm always worried about these highs and lows of the fantasy and the crash, you know, the ups and the downs in something, you know. If someone's, yay, we're so excited to have you, and I'm going, right, I'm happy to be here too, but, you know, don't get disappointed if I make a mistake, because guess what? I'm human. We all make mistakes. You can't find a human being that hasn't made a mistake somewhere along the line. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, so
it's the same whether you get staff or tenants or, you know, whatever, business or relationship or anything. You know, you've got to have that realistic expectation. There's a honeymoon, a reality, and a divorce. Just, keep that in mind, I guess, is probably one of those things.
It's a bit of gold there.
Sorry, I'm rattling on.
No, you're not. No, there's some real wisdom in what you're saying there. That
it's all in the book.
Relate to it. Yes, it is, and which I'm sort of not assuming anything, because I want the audience to really get a sense of what they're going to get from Dynamic Duos, because it is an awesome read, and while you know some of the focus is on partners in business together, any life partners who are trying to navigate the magic tapestry of life can get a lot from that. Let's dig into that a little bit, because you know I know when you and I spoke at some length some time ago, where I was talking about how my good wife Sonia and I have learnt to bring together our personal and business life and survive that, because of a lot don't. Talk to us about those the key 5 C's and how that might help people to navigate the challenges that they're ultimately going to face.
Sure, sure. So, Bushy, the book I've built in the methodology of the 5 C's. Now, we're talking about clarity about who we are and what we do and who our partner is, the commitment levels, why we came together in the first place. To build a solid foundation on anything, you have to have effective communication. So we talk about how to handle conflict and discussions and things like that with your partner. Once you've got a solid personal foundation in your relationship, then we can move into cooperation, which is talking more about systems, structures, roles, responsibilities in the business and how to effectively have good teamwork. And then the last C is collaboration, which is about combining your hearts and minds together to put into a vision about that journey forward. Now, if you're a couple in business together, you're actually using the business as to provide the vehicle for your income and financial stability for the future of yourselves and your family. And so it's really important that we both come onto the same page with regards to that. If you've got two people pulling in different directions, it can be disastrous. And speaking from experience, my husband now, I won't say my current husband because he's my only husband. I'm not intending to replay and have another one. No, I'm not trading him in. No, he's worth too much. He's worth his weight in gold. I just need to get him a bit fatter and heavier. So,
love it.
Anyway, like he's got the skills in the technical side of it. I've got skills in the business side of it. We both value the fact that we can't do it without each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing is before you even get to the 5 C's in the book, Bushy, we talk about the foundations to living. Now, these go across anybody, and these are just basic common sense, If I go into that, we'll be here all night. But there are 5 foundations to living, which I cover off as well. So it's what we focus on grows. Every human being needs 2 things. Everybody has a box of springs. We're talking about everybody has a different view of the intersection, and the law of balance always applies. And if you actually look into those things, there's a very simple, logical understanding in that. In the concepts that are put forward in the foundations to living. So if you don't have that, then it's going to be difficult to apply the 5 C's as well, because a lot of the 5 C's, especially when it talks about conflict, everybody has arguments, but it's about how we deal with that, and that comes back to everybody has a different view of the intersection, and the law of balance always applies. Yeah. And what we focus on grows. So it kind of intertwines back into those foundations to living. Now, I'm in the process of putting together a mini-series of little video snippets which actually go into a bit more depth on those foundations to living, and they'll sort of trying to get that up on my website. But it's so important to understand that these are just common sense things. This is common knowledge that we should all know. And Bushy, unfortunately, we don't. Like the human race as a whole, we have to have I suppose what you'd call a terminal velocity of consciousness. We have to have enough people knowing this knowledge for it to become common knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Those things that we should understand, basic perceptions. Acceptance and non-judgment should be keys to everybody's living.
Totally agree, but we're so. I'd be interested in your commentary on this. I just don't think we have any margin anymore, Julie. And what I mean by that is there's no gap between what we're expected to do and what we want to do, and there is that constant sense of obligation, and we're bombarded constantly through, everyone lives on their iPhone, so it's instant everything. Those expectations that you spoke about are being unrealistically set by the glamour that we subconsciously drown our minds in by flicking through Facebook and Instagram and every other damn thing that consumes our every spare moment. And as a consequence of that, the subliminal message is, I'm not good enough. I need to have those things to be happy. And we don't then allow ourselves a time of reflection to step back and go, hold on a minute, that's bullshit. I don't need any of that crap at all. This is what's really important to me. Let's just focus on making those things happen. Can you give me your thoughts around that whole subject?
Sure. I understand where you're coming from, Bushy, and I think it's something that's only applicable to those people who let it be applicable to them. I really do find that those people who are very impressionable are seeking some sort of justification or acceptance outside of themselves, and that comes back to where we're talking, that we're looking outside of ourselves. I was brought up, I suppose, one of those fake Christians. Oh, you're Christian Church of England, but but we don't go to church, sort of thing. Only on Easter and Christmas. When it's supposed to. No, I don't know. Like anyway. Yeah. I mean, I've had a fairly interesting life. I really have. I mean, when I first went to get married, my mum said to me, she says, "Oh, you've got to go and get right by God. You've got to go to a church and be part of the church and all that sort of stuff." So she encouraged us to get involved in a church and get right before God, because marriage is a sanctity and all this sort of stuff. Anyway, so I kind of went, oh, okay, well, you don't go to church, so okay, well, we'll just wear that one. Anyway, so we went along and and actually, it was funny because the experience, I've been baptised in water and all that sort of stuff, and, kind of know the Bible sort of thing. And, then we went to a house church, and then that was all fallen apart, and, due to various indiscrepancies and stuff like that, And I kind of look at it like, religion's like, you've seen the movie The Matrix?
Yes.
Right. In one of the episodes, one of the movies, there's a long hallway and there's a door at the end and there's doors off to the sides. I look at religion like that. So you go into one door and you go into a room, and that's, Buddhism or spiritualism or Christianity or Catholicism or this or that or the other. Anyway, you go into this room and it's all nice and warm and fuzzy, but eventually you'll feel that you'll come to the edge of the room. You'll feel there's walls and the only way in and out is the front door, So you come out of there and you go across the hallway, you go into another room, and that's a different religion, and they've got walls too, and then over there's got walls and over there's got walls. In fact, it was so funny because I had I was sitting down having a conversation, and this guy turns around and he goes to me, "Oh yeah, I used to be part of the satanic cult." And
wow.
And I went, that's very interesting. So what's that all about?
It's another room with walls.
It's another room with walls. Yeah. We just have to break any rules that there are. I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah. Okay, good to chat to you. See you later. So I can just sort of come and go, and I can see where everybody's going. In and I've had discussions with people, Mormons and other Pentecostals and this and that and the other. Yeah. Anyway, very, very interesting. But where were we on this subject?
Well,
you'd asked me a question at the beginning.
No,
I kind of got sidetracked.
Well, what I'm hearing here is if I put a thread through what you've been talking about, you have this uncanny ability to step out of yourself and look in and almost observe a situation for what it is without imposing any prejudices or preconceived ideas, and then accepting the situation for what it is. Am I
so important?
Yeah.
So it's so important, and I think your question at the beginning was that we were talking about the impressionism of people who read stuff on social media and feel obligated to behave like that. And the point to it was that if we can't love ourselves, how can we possibly believe that somebody else can love us?
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't match with our brain. It's like does not compute, Hang on a minute, you can't love me because I don't love me, so how could you possibly love me? And so we look outside of ourselves, and this comes back to the religion, as we were taught, do unto others as you wish to be done to you. You know, all these phrases that's been spouted about since the dawn of time and things like that.
Yeah.
And so we're constantly pouring our love into somebody else, expecting and waiting for them to pour it back. Now, in one of the Foundations to Living series, in the mini-series, I talk about the cup. Now, if someone's got a capacity to love, but it's the size of a teacup, how much love can they actually receive?
Exactly.
Only the amount of the teacup. So if I come along with my jug of water and I pour into that cup and I keep pouring, the cup's going to fill up, then it's going to overflow. The rest of my love is going to fall to the ground and get soaked into the dirt. The person left standing once I finished has still only got a cupful, right? And they're going to feel like drowned, right? And my jug's going to be empty.
Yeah.
So then I go, okay, well, if I want them to love me, they're going to pour their cup back into my jug and it's going to fill up probably about 2 centimetres in the bottom, and I'm going to go, where's the rest of it? Do you know what I mean? They're going, but that's all I've got to give. And that, to them, that's what they've got to give. That's all they know. So I'm going, okay, but that's not enough to fill me. So, you know, like, then I'm left unfulfilled and resent, but I've poured all my love into you and you've only given me this tiny little bit back. But we're not understanding that everybody has a different capacity.
Yep, different size cup.
To love.
Yeah.
They've got a different size cup or vessel, you know, you can just go to a barrel. So I look at it like this. If I filled my jug and kept filling my jug, right? I just keep filling my jug will be full. And what happens when it's full and I keep filling? It'll overflow. So the person with the cup comes to the overflow and catches all the overflow, and then they walk away happy because they're filled, right? Yeah. And then somebody else comes along and gets the overflow. So here I can sit there and I can pour out as much love and energy as I can to somebody, you know, because it's just coming from the overflow. So when I'm helping somebody, like, you know, I've been helping some of my friends and recently, and, you know, they're going through marriage troubles or dramas or this or that, the other, or confusions, and I'm just helping with them, sharing with them, supporting them, loving them, caring for them. And then they look at me and they go, aren't you drained? I'm going, no, I'm feeling better than ever because I'm filling my jug and you're just getting the overflow. Right? So this love others as you want, you know, do unto others as you want to be. If you love somebody, they'll love you back. We've got it all twisted around the wrong way. If we love us first and then they get the overflow, we're actually pouring out 100 times more than we could ever possibly do and not feeling left drained or exhausted or emotionally destitute ourselves.
Yes.
And people say, oh, but isn't that selfish? No, that's actually self-loving. Because if I can fulfill you all the time, I don't ever have to push you away saying, no, I don't feel like filling you up today. I don't feel like, you know, I don't feel like sharing with you today. I just don't have the time or the energy for you today because I'm always full. So sure, you can come around. I've got time for you. I've got time for you. I've got time for you. I've got time for the podcast. I've got time for anybody if they really want it. You know,
yes.
If they really want it. See, I'm not going to waste my time on somebody who's just, you know, pissing around and going, I just want to see how much I can string her along. No, the funniest thing, one of the funniest memories I have of my 2 kids, Michelle, my youngest daughter, she's absolutely gorgeous. She's an absolutely stunning girl. Yeah. And she was sitting in the back seat and she was only about 5 and she was crying, oh, mummy. And I said, what's wrong, Michelle? She said, Grandma called you a bitch. And I started laughing. I absolutely wet myself laughing. And she stopped crying and she looked at me. And, of course, this is Grandma being my ex-husband's mother.
Yeah, right.
And anyway, I'm laughing my ass off. And she's going, why are you laughing, Mummy? And I said to her, okay, Michelle, it's like this. I said, you know Mummy, right? Of course, Mummy. I said, is Mummy a bitch? No, Mummy, I love you, Mummy. So I said, there's your answer.
Yeah.
There's your answer. I said, okay, Michelle. I said, if Mummy asked Grandma for help, bearing in mind this is my ex-husband's mother, I said, would Grandma help Mummy? No, Mummy, she hates you. I said, okay, fair enough. I said, if Grandma asked Mummy for help, would Mummy go and help?
Yep.
She said, of course, Mummy, that's who you are.
Yeah, there you go.
I said,
That's who
it.
you are. That's gold in that statement.
They know, kids know. There's no point in one parent, fighting over the other parent and running the other parent down to the first in front of the kids. There's no point to that. All the kids are going to do is go, well, you're the asshole because I actually love my mum.
Exactly.
What are you doing?
Yet they don't get that.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
I could.
That's just stupid. That's just crazy. All you're doing is putting a wedge between you and the kid.
Totally.
If you're running down the other parent, you got to understand, in the child's eyes, they love their parents.
Yep.
There's no point in fighting one over the other and telling the kids, oh, your mother's this and your father's that. None of it. Doesn't work.
No, never will. It's unconditional. There's a bond there regardless of the scenario that's going to be there. So why try and
absolutely
say anything else?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hey,
absolutely, because... Yeah, sorry, I could go on for hours.
Yeah, no, this is really interesting.
Full of pins to say that's enough.
No, no, not at all. Because and this is sort of it's going to sound a bit inane in comparison with the depth that we've been going into. But if we pull that together with all those foundation stones, you've outlined it beautifully in the book. But if we were to draw a picture of your ideal lifestyle then in that context, drawing that together, what does it look like? Can you paint the picture for us?
I'm actually really happy where I am, mate. I really am.
Great.
I really am. I've got two beautiful daughters. As I said, my eldest is a pilot in the Air Force, and my youngest is studying criminology. She's a beautiful girl, absolutely stunning girl. Yeah. Both of them are. Yeah. And I've got a fantastic husband who is. He is just gold. He is every woman's dream, my husband.
Love it.
He's caring, attentive, he's hardworking, he's lovely, he's just the best support for me. He doesn't stop me from doing anything. He doesn't question anything I do. There's so much level of trust there, but that comes back to our level of commitment to each other.
Yeah.
And the clarity we know who we are and what we're doing and where we're going.
Yeah.
We've got a very successful business. We're just taking on another design business in property development. I've got the book. My book's in the hands of Ellen DeGeneres now, apparently.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yep. That was given as a gift to her on her 61st birthday, so I'm really proud of that, and I've sent it off to other significant people that I've actually referenced in the book.
Fantastic.
I'm not in my dream house yet, but I know it's on the way. I know it's all happening, and I'm just patient enough to allow it to unfold as the time comes, very contented actually.
Yeah, brilliant, and you can hear it. It's coming through. You're comfortable in your skin, Julie, which very few people are. Tell me, you touched on very briefly there the property development and the property side, and obviously,
yes,
property's been very good to Sonia and I.
Yes.
I guess our continuous study of freedom and success keeps telling me that. Those that achieve that sort of sustainable level of fulfillment and freedom, yes, they invest in their work and their career and their business, but they also invest in growth assets that will sustain their lifestyle long term. Is property part of that for you, or talk me through where property fits in and what your approach to property is and what that means to you?
Yeah, look, I've always been interested in property. Always. I guess if I look back on it, there were certain places that I've just always had a passion for it, right? When I was with my ex, we got offered to double the size of our house for like $15,000. We just buy the materials and we had the labour and help, and then my ex-husband said no. So I went, okay, let's rent this place out and build our dream home on 5 acres in this beautiful... No, can't do that. Okay, let's do this. No, so eventually I realised, I looked at him and I said, we're not even in the same library, let alone on the same book and the same page and the same aisle or anything. So I kind of went, okay, fair enough. And then, of course, when we separated, and I had nothing, I literally walked out with absolutely nothing. And when I started business consulting, I was working 3 days in a call centre so I could consult for business on the other 3 days. And I've kind of slowly, and then when I met William, he came with his fair share of baggage, so we had a nice long court case and custody battle for 6 years. So we weren't allowed to have any assets then. So we've really only started in the last couple of years. And we started this business with $0 in the bank.
Yep.
And I said, well, here's a screwdriver and a set of car keys. Go do what you normally do, because he'd always been a technician in fixing photocopiers. So we started with 2 customers in the garage with no money in the bank, and we just built it up from there. So everything we've put back into the business. Now, photocopiers isn't my dream 5-year-old, I'm going to grow up and be a photocopier technician type thing. So I just go, well, I'm the business consultant, right? I'm putting my money where my mouth is to show that I can actually build a business. Yeah. And then I'm now doing what I want to do, which is the photocopier business is now funding, the property development and the book and the launch and my speaking tours and programs and things like that we're putting all together. So that's actually funding the development and the publishing of the book and stuff and moving around. So getting us to the next level.
So let's drill into that property piece and paint the picture of what are you doing in property, why are you doing it, and where's it going to get you to?
Oh, look, it's still early days yet, and we're still building a foundation, but I've had an opportunity to take on a design company, so we've sort of managing that, being director of the company and getting that organised, and it's about linking with like-minded people. So we've got a group where we've got someone who's doing project management, someone's doing the design, someone's doing the funding of it, and I'm doing the management running of it, someone else is doing the consulting. So it's kind of pulling it all together. Yeah. But it's super cool. Look, we've got a large development which we've been able to do some work with in one of the high growth areas in Brisbane, so quite a large, 500 houses in that one. But we're also doing some small lot developments as well, and looking for some lots that we can just do build and buy, build and sell, build and keep. So we've got a strategy of sell 3, keep 3, sell 3, keep 3 on every one of the properties that we do into the business structure. Gotcha. So everything's protected by trusts and things like that. So and then we'll just rent our house off the trust. Gotcha. In the business. So it's just the way that it goes. But we thought we'd do the obviously because we're doing the construction as well, so we need net tangible asset of at least a couple of $100,000 to do up to $10 million worth of build. Yeah. So we're working with the project managers and stuff like that to get the best. Yeah, and you know what? It's interesting because our design guy said to me the other day, he said, you can't price on a price per square metre. And I go, oh yeah, why is that? And he goes, he drew a square 10 by 10 by 10 by 10 square house, and then he drew a 20 by 5 oblong house. And he said they're both 100 square metres, but you use more materials in the long house than you do in the square house.
True.
Because one's only 40 and the other one's 50. And I went, oh yeah, that's very interesting. So when someone says, oh, we do a price per square metre quote, you go, well, what sort of house is it? Because are you paying for the long house or the square house? Yeah. So you're not going to get the most accurate costings that way.
Absolutely.
And I thought that was a very interesting little tidbit of information.
That is.
So
good way to actually break it down into something that's real in that regard. But interesting. Well,
I'm surrounded by smart people. That's what I like.
and that's one of the big lessons, because certainly in our own experience, property is an elite team sport, and you're only as good as the people that you've got on that team.
Oh, look, I've come across like this one guy I had a meeting with. So we went in with one of the estate agents we were working with, and he says, "Oh, come in and have a chat to this developer." And I was like, "Okay, no problems." So I went in and sat down, and this guy's going, "Oh, I just need $8 million seed capital." And I looked at him and go, "Yeah, don't we all?" And he's going, I'm buying this block, and it's going to be, 50 stories high, and we're going to have 600 units in there. And I go, "Oh, okay, what have you got planned for it?" And he says, "Well, we've got retail on the bottom, and then we've got a nursing home, and then we've got elite penthouses, and we've also got student accommodation, and then on these floors we're going to have a private hospital, eye hospital there." And I'm going, "Dude, do you have any idea what you're doing?"
No, clearly not, from what I'm hearing there.
And I'm like, this is, and I said, "How long have you been doing property development?" "Oh, 15 years. I was like, "Right,
really?
Okay." And after that time, you still need $8 million worth of seed capital. I said, "I'm not putting any money into anything." I said, "You know what you best do?" Anyway, he came up with this other plan that he wanted to do. They'd overcooked the books on the development. And anyway, they needed $2.5 million to settle within like 2 days. Yeah. And I looked at it and I go, "You've only got 16 blocks out of that, and it's in this area, and the maximum price you're going to get is that." And I went, "The best way to do it," I said, "you need to go in and chat to your friend, see if you can do a joint venture and offset the payments and this and that and the other, and that's the only way you're going to get it through." Yeah. Anyway, a lot of people dabble around and stuff, and they don't really know what they're doing. Or as the saying goes, they know enough to be dangerous.
Yeah, spot on. Spot on. That's
and they get themselves in the shit, and then they wonder, "Oh dear, can't get out of it."
Yeah, well, it's the old story. When you don't know what you don't know, then you are dangerous. Because if you think you know and you don't know, then that's even worse. So, and there's a lot of people in property who either don't trust anyone, or who don't educate themselves well enough, or don't surround themselves with the right calibre of people, and what can be a fantastic ride in property can turn into a nightmare very quickly.
Well, see, I don't want to be a lawyer, so I just have to hire a smart lawyer.
Yep.
And smart lawyers cost money, so you've got to be prepared to pay the money. Yep. Otherwise, you're going to have to sit down there and read the 7,000 law books that there are in the ever-changing law that happens.
Exactly.
And I just don't have time to do that, sorry. So I have to pay a smart lawyer, and the same with an accountant. I even phoned my lawyer today with a business question, a particular legal question, and he said, "Do this, do this, do this." And I said, "That's why I've got you on my side."
Exactly.
In fact, the lawyer that I've got, he's absolutely brilliant. I'll give him a bit of a plug. He's Chris Lilly from Chili Law, small business lawyer in Brisbane. Absolutely brilliant. And he said to me the first time, he said, "Julie, what are you looking for in a lawyer?" And I said, "Make me money and keep me out of jail. That's all I need." He said, "Well, you follow what I tell you, and then we'll be okay." And I said, "It's okay, mate." I said, "I'm going to be the one client that's giving you the grey hair the quickest." He's a brilliant guy, really good guy.
Yeah, perfect. They're like gold. You hang on to those people. Now, Julie, I'm sort of just mindful of chewing up a lot of your time. So I want to sort of move into what I call the ambush session, which is playing on my nickname. And there's sort of 5 key questions that the audience always likes to get people's insights on. So kicking into that, what's your favourite quote and why?
Always tell the truth, because it's easier to remember.
Can't go wrong with that.
I know, right?
Can't go wrong. Yeah, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Now, you're obviously someone who's pretty well read. So what would be the top book that you'd recommend people read, and why?
I've read a lot of books. a lot of novels, fantasy and all that sort of stuff, and bits and pieces. But I'd have to say, at the moment, my top book is mine. I actually got it back from the publishers, and I know this sounds a bit weird, but I got it back from the publishers, and I was flicking through it, and I kept reading, and I was halfway through the book, and I went, "Hey, this is really good." Oh yeah, that's right, that's fine. Look, I do reference a number of good books in my book.
Yeah.
Things like Dan Millman, Laws of the Spirit, and Gary Zukav, and, The Heart of the Soul, and, things that, there's been many impactful books. Michael Gerber, his E-Myth book, and, things like that. Like, they're really, really powerful books. But, the interesting thing, though, Bushy, is that I find that a book is I'm more a believer in synchronicity.
Yep.
So if you're drawn to a book, it's something that you need to read.
Yeah.
And you might turn around and say, you got to read this book. And the other person's like, no, it's not for me at the moment. And that's okay, because the message inside that book is for you at that moment, at that time.
Yeah, when the student's ready, the teacher arrives. That's exactly
right.
It's exactly
pretty much
right. Yeah, no, gold. Yeah, absolutely spot on there. No, brilliant. Now, this is a complete change of direction, but it's something that we hear Australians talk about all the time in terms of they feel that they pay too much tax. So what's the top thing that you've done to pay less tax legally?
I'm glad you added that last bit on the end. You know what, Bushy? I think I was given a challenge one day to write down 100 reasons why paying tax is good. Right?
Yeah.
And I completed that challenge quite easily, because honestly, I think that we need to pay tax because it keeps the country running.
Yep.
My husband 2 years ago had a $100,000 heart bypass operation under the Medicare system, and I was so grateful because now I've got a husband that's alive and not dead.
Yeah.
And the nurse said to me, she said, "Oh, how do you find the price of the car parking?" I said, "Mate, you've just given my husband an operation to save his life. Who gives a shit about $16 worth of car parking? Get your priorities in order here." I do think, though, that maybe the money that comes in for the taxes is poorly managed, and I think that's probably what more people are pissed off at. Yeah. That, how can someone be in government for 2 years, get overthrown, and then have free travel for the rest of their life and free pension? What's the go with that? I think that tax is a good thing.
Yep.
If people are looking to pay less tax, I'd say get into business, because I pay my phone and my car and my electricity before I pay tax.
Yeah.
It's just, there's different ways. I'm not giving financial advice, so I'm going to put a disclaimer up in my hand right there. Yeah. Get better accounting advice and get better legal advice. But being in business has a great deal of benefits for people. And if you're not sure about getting into business with your partner, obviously read the book first. Dynamic Duos.
Not well mentioned again. All right, now the swinging back into the investment stream. What's both the worst and the best piece of investment advice that you've ever received to date, Julie?
I think, speaking from experience, right, we actually went into buying gold when it was $287 an ounce. Brilliant strategy, because the very next day the planes flew into the Twin Towers and gold went through the roof, hit something like $1,800 an ounce over that period of time. Yeah. So brilliant investment strategy, but terrible choice of people. So the people that we invested in was all, very good sales pitch and all that sort of stuff. It wasn't their fault, it was their boss's fault. The guy who was supposed to actually buy real gold, but the guy who controlled the whole thing ended up taking off with $362 billion, that's billion with a B for Bob, $1 billion worth of investors' money, and our little pocket of money was part of that. So you know who you're dealing with, and if you can, do it yourself so that you've got control of it. That's what I'd suggest.
Yeah, that's spot on. Know who you're dealing with. That's absolutely applicable to anything you do. Okay, no, that's awesome. And the best piece of advice. So that's I'm picking that's the worst. What's the best piece of best advice you've ever received?
Know who you're dealing with.
Yeah, it covers it off in one fell swoop. All right, now drilling back to your personal situation, then. What's and we've covered. I think we've covered this off, but I'd love to hear your gold on this. What's a personal habit that you feel contributes most to your success today, Julie?
Personal habit. I just, I don't know if I have a habit of something, apart from, I don't know, scratching my head or picking my nose. I don't know what sort of thing you mean by habit.
Or a ritual or an approach or a practice that you think...
I suppose a habit, a ritual or an approach. And the thing I come back to is... what we focus on grows.
Yeah.
Now, if I was to focus on all the negatives in my husband, I could probably find a million of them, but I choose not to. I choose to focus on the positives that he contributes to the relationship, to the business, and I thank him for that every day. And what happens is he actually appreciates being appreciated and therefore works harder, and therefore our success grows much quicker. Our journey is much smoother, and I think that contributes to the success just by being loving, unconditional loving, and appreciative and accepting of each other. Accepting of our mistakes. But yeah, it's a matter of focusing on the positives as much as you can and working towards the success. There's so many things that can bring us down and be negative and there's so many challenges and struggles, but you got to look past that and go, I'm learning from this. This is called character building. It's a wonderful experience. I will become a better person. This is a positive.
Yeah, the obstacle is the way, as Halliday says, and I just think it's so true. I reckon that's gold. What we focus on grows, and it's. You've mentioned that in the book, but it's just such a truism that a lot of people just allow themselves to get swamped in the negativity, and I know Sonia and I stopped watching mainstream news about 15 years ago, and ignorance has been absolute bliss for us. And if something's important, someone's going to tell us about it. But why would we rub our nose in that shot?
Yeah, I found out about the planes going into the Twin Towers the following morning when I went down for breakfast, and I'm going, the plane ride was lovely over. Thank you very much. Oh, what? Who did what?
Yeah, well, we were 3 days. So we were 3 days before we found out.
You can unplug.
We were.
You can unplug, and it's okay.
It is like the life goes on, as you mentioned earlier. It's so true with that. All right, look, hey, just to bring it to a close then. And thinking now back across the rich experience that you've been through and continue to enjoy, if you spoke to a school leaver, and it might be one of your daughters actually, what would you advise them to invest their time, their money and skills in to create their version of freedom?
Look, I think it's most important for everyone to invest their time in becoming the best version of themselves that they can be. And that's sounds simple, but it's not as easy as it sounds, because it means actually looking deeply into your own causes of the failings to stop that downward spiral from happening. So, yeah. Work on yourself to become the best version of yourself you can be. Yeah,
gold. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Now, for those that have really wired into the benefits that you bring to the table, particularly in helping partners to tackle the challenges in life, whether that be in business together or otherwise, obviously grab a copy of dynamic duos, but if they wanted to reach out and get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Feel free to email me, julie@dynamicduos.com.au.
Easy as that. Fantastic.
Yep, easy as that.
Look, been a very enjoyable conversation. I think we've only scratched the surface, and I reckon I could very easily talk for another 2 hours, Julie, and still feel like we're only touching the edges. But that's been really appreciated you openly sharing.
My pleasure.
The good and the bad, and there's some really good wisdom in what you've shared with us. I know there's a lot of people will connect with that, so keep on doing what you're doing, and I wish you ongoing success with the book, and I'd love for you to share with me how Ellen DeGeneres reacts and others that get an opportunity to read it, because that's a very exciting journey that you're on.
Yeah, love it. I've had fun today, Bushy. Thank you so much.
It's been awesome.
Really great. And next time I'm in Adelaide, I'm coming to see you.
You better. I'm looking forward to that.
Put the kettle on.
It's done. I might have a bottle of wine in the background as well, so don't worry about that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Sounds
Julie.
good.
Thanks for your time. Well, freedom fighters, how good was that? To get a summary of all this investment gold in the show notes, just email me on hello@khgroup.com.au. That's HELLO@khgroup.com.au. Or check us out at www.bushymartin.com.au/get invested. I look forward to joining you next week for another episode of the Get Invested podcast. So thanks for listening, and as always, dream as if you live forever and live as if you'll die.